Welcome to part 2 of the reading, yeah. Part 2. Here we go. Let's read part 2. Well, not really. I mean, the second section within the introduction. We'll kind of go forward from that point and then just see where it takes us. And maybe kind of dwell on certain things if need be. Now, the second one. A second objection and prejudice against all philosophical investigation is taken from the alleged fact that the deepest thinkers on these subjects come to different, yea, even to diametrically opposite conclusions. The sure and steady march of the mathematical sciences is pointed out as the model of what the fruits of metaphysical philosophy ought to be, and would be, if it were a genuine branch of human knowledge. The fact, therefore, that such a steady progression is not found, but the contradictions appear to be ever multiplied as speculation goes on, is taken as an argument against the whole range of metaphysical inquiry. That those which are termed the accurate sciences offer a peculiar facility for investigation, and are removed almost entirely beyond the reach of errors and contradictions, arises from their very nature. Such, however, it must be remembered, is by no means the case with any other of the acknowledgedly genuine branches of human knowledge. In politics, for example, men of the greatest sagacity follow complete opposite theories as to what is, in the main, most conducive to a nation's prosperity. But should we therefore interdict the whole sciences of legislation and political economy as being without any grounds of certainty, and utterly fruitless in its results? It is not clear, on the contrary, that these differences of opinion are but the very means and movements by which the sciences as a whole progresses. Or, to take another illustration, which may be within the reach of everyone's personal experience, are there not many different forms of Christianity built upon the common data, on the ground of which we all alike receive its general authenticity? Have there not ever been contending parties and opposite conclusions, and do we infer from thence that the whole system is untrue, and that no certainty can possibly be arrived at, amidst the clashing opinions of which even the greatest minds are exposed? Far from it. Discussion is a very bulk word of truth, the only safeguard against the imperfection of the human mind, the only chastiser of extravagance, the only antagonist of dogmaticism, the only handpost that points us perpetually along the path of moderation, which is most commonly the path of truth. The little mind that looks upon contending sects around is scandalized, and says with Pilate in a jest, "What is truth?" without ever intending to listen for a reply. But the more expanding intellect sees in these same the strugglings of human thought, by which it will gradually yet surely unfold the whole great system of religious truth from the germs that lie before it in the Word, or around it in the world. The same principles apply in the case for speculative philosophy. In all researches so recondite in their nature and so wide and all-embracing in their extent, it was inevitable that one mind should follow out one branch, pushing its conclusions in that direction of their furthest limit, and that another mind, starting from a different point of the view and going to the same extreme on the opposite side, should evolve conclusions that appear to be altogether contradictory. The man, therefore, who throws himself into the stream of one particular system of opinion, and thinks to exhaust all human knowledge by that means, is sure in the end to suffer for his error by having his faith shaken in the results of all philosophical research. That is interesting. And then a shallow, unthinking common sense is by no means unwilling to take the alarm, and stamp all philosophy as a vain and useless jangle of words, to which it is very uncertain whether or not any true idea can be attached. The more enlarged mind, however, sees that in each particular philosophical tendency, an additional step is taken along the road of human knowledge. all the error of which will in time be exploded by some opposite school, while the real substantial truth will remain. Analysis is the great instrument of all human investigation. An analysis, to be scrutinizingly and severe, must be confined to one point at a time. Select, then, your point. Single it out from the whole superstructure of truth. Bend upon it the whole of your analytical force. And then, what is the inevitable results? We answer, truth and error combined. Error there must be more or less from the isolation which is made of this one particular point from all its necessary relations. But this error is only an unavoidable step for the further discovery of truth, because the analysis of every individual question is the more accurate in proportion as the whole mind is absorbed in it alone, to the exclusion of every other. Every school of philosophy, then, may be regarded as an analysis of one particular branch of philosophical truth, and it only requires a subsequent synthesis to put together the combined result of the different systems, in order to show what has been the net increase they have brought to the whole mass of human knowledge. To sober and earnest minds there is no such thing as positive error. To such all error is negative. It is a falling short of the fact of the case. It consists in isolation and incompleteness, so that all analysis may be said to result in positive and negative conclusions, in plus and minus quantities. And synthesis is the process by which the whole is summed up and the final amount determined. Let's go into that last one. Every finite mind is necessarily involved in negative error to a certain extent, from the very fact of its imperfection. So likewise, all the errors of honest thinkers arise from a false or a depressed standpoint. They are errors in incompleteness in thinking, not the blind acceptance of a falsehood on the traditionary or other similar grounds. Now, if we look back steadfastly upon the past history of philosophy, we may see that it has ever had a progressive development, that each age has contributed its portion, greater or less, and that the agitation between the different schools has been, as it were, the pulsations of its forward movement. Thales and Pythagoras combined the vague theories of their age into their own respective system. Without the former, Democritus and Atomus would have been impossible, and without the latter, Parmenides and Zeno had never embodied in regular form the tenets of the Eleatic philosophy. The struggles of these two schools paved the way for Socrates, and thus rendering both Plato and Aristotle possible. Without the former of these, the early Christian philosophers would not have seen the light, and without the latter, the scholastic philosophy could not possibly have arisen. But for the practical fruitlessness of the scholastic age, again, Descartes had not sought to recast the whole method of philosophical investigation, and without the results of the old organum before his eyes, Bacon had never framed the new. Had Descartes, moreover, or some equivalent mind failed to point out the new road, Leibniz had never trotted it, and the German philosophy was still but a possibility, trotted it, and the German philosophy were still but a possibility. And had Bacon never shown the practical power of induction, Locke had never applied it to the study of the mind, or Newton by its means furnished the key to the temple of the universe. As the course of the vessel that makes its way against the breeze consists of a series of movements, each one of which seems to bear it away from the true direction, yet brings it in fact so much farther on its destined course. So the mind that can only view each individual tact which the philosophic spirit takes is apt to imagine that every such movement carries it farther from the true mark, whilst those who can take the whole course in at one comprehensive view see that those apparent deviations are all necessary to bring us nearer and nearer to the center of eternal truth. What are we learning there? Not much, I know, right? Where's the to begin here? So, objections answered is what this is kind of talking about. And honestly, for me, I heard a lot of, each one has its own belief system within it, and through that, we have to explore what and how we obtained that point of like my philosophical belief. Well, I have to have these inquiries, and I have to make sure that I'm honest in searching out the truth and not sticking to these dogmatic ways. Essentially is what I just read here. At least what I retained out of it. Now, what is experience? Experience cannot result from more isolated perceptions, for in that case, the consciousness of one moment could have no reference to that of another. So the subject, it's got certain words in italics. You gobshite. What is that? Bruv. Here we go. I went a little bit too far back. So, yeah, essentially that still is what I read. These pages are weird, uneven. And yeah, getting out of the dogmatic kind of idea, finding truth within self, but making sure that we seek out the greater truth. That's really it. And at the end there, it was basically saying, hey man, like, it's all helping each other out. The progression of it can be seen through the past. So it was mentioned those early people that I don't even know who they were, and then I went into Aristotle and Socrates, and then I went further into different minds. And it's basically saying that we create this and we keep it going forward. From that point, then we continue on. So it just seems like I always say it like that. Philosophy within ourselves, we have to find the truth, and we have to know that we're going to make mistakes, and those mistakes must be kind of found and taken out of it. That's the process in which we're going to continue it. That seems to be the overall theme of that, does it not? So, interesting, isn't it? Let's just stop at section 2. It's so heady, it's so wordy. We don't want to get too far away from ourselves. So I suggest going back and listening again to the first one, coming back to this point and seeing where we sit on that. Digest that a little bit. This is not going to be a finish in a week kind of thing. We have a fuck ton to go. So we haven't even made it to the point where you can even notice how far we're in the book. So let's just digest that a little bit and see what we feel, and we'll kind of come back to it.